road trippers, welcome to another episode of the Road Tripping Podcast. As always, it's great to have you tuning in. If this is your first episode, then welcome. If it's not your first episode, then welcome back. As always, we want to take this opportunity to say thank you for letting us provide you with content that helps your commute suck just a little less. It really means a lot to us that you're listening. In today's episode, we are going to take the plunge and drive over to the Jewelry District and see what we can learn about the gemstone known as the Stone of Heaven. Or, as we in the West have come to know it, Jade. Molly suggested this topic after her visit to China last year, after she had the opportunity to visit a traditional craftsman shop and then the chance to tour a more modern commercial producer of Jade artwork. She took one look and was absolutely hooked. I'm fairly sure if she had more yuan on her, then she would have cleaned out the shop. Well, Jade is found in many parts of the world, which we will talk a bit about. Most of what we will relate about in this show will be in regards to how it is viewed, used, and coveted in China. After all, it is said that, as gold is to the United States, so is jade to China. Jade has been treasured for some 7,000 years for its unique luster, lovely color, and impeccable toughness. But what is it exactly? I'm sure there are gemologists out there who could give us lectures for hours on the creation of jade, but to simplify it for the sake of your commute, jade is a metamorphic rock that has formed in a subduction zone, which means that at one time, a long time ago, that piece of jade was a different kind of rock altogether that was caught up in an area where the boundaries of two tectonic plates met, called a subduction zone. This is when one of the two tectonic plates that meet is forced down under the other, resulting in high heat, high pressure, and high mineral-rich fluids. Originally, all jade objects were thought to be made from the same material. However, in 1863, a Frenchman by the name of Alex de Moore discovered that the material known as jade could be divided into two different materials, jadeite and nephrite. Though they do look very similar to the untrained eye, the two minerals do have different physical, optical, and chemical characteristics. Jadeite jade, while predominantly made up of jadeite, will contain feldspar and analocene and come in many colors, including purples, reds, whites, oranges, and of course shades of green. Jadeite jade that is classified as imperial green, which is an emerald green color, is the most prized and the most valuable variation. However, this isn't the jade used in the most ancient of Chinese artworks, as it comes from Burma, not China. Nephrite jade comes primarily from the mountains of the Xinjiang region, but was often found in the riverbeds downstream. It is made up of magnesia, silica, and iron. The greater the iron content, the greener the color. The lower the iron content, the color options change. It could be colored yellow, blue, red, light purple, white, or even brown. But don't let the different colors fool you. Jade has super strength. Its tensile strength, meaning how much resistance a material has to breaking under tension, can often be higher than steel.
Jade was known as the imperial gem as far back as 7000 BC, causing nephrite jade to be heavily mined throughout China. Due to its popularity for making tools, weapons, and ornamental objects, some of those locations have been completely depleted. Chinese emperors so desired excellent specimens of jade that they traded or waged war with distant people to acquire them. In fact, a yearly tribute to the emperor often included the most precious of nephrite jade varieties, the white jade, along with the usual gold and silver. The beautiful color of jade made it a mysterious stone to the Chinese in ancient times. So jade wares were popular as sacrificial vessels and were often buried with the dead. One example of the ritual importance of jade is the burial of the body of Liu Cheng, a prince of the Zhejiang state, Western Han dynasty, who died around 113 BCE. He was buried in a jade suit composed of 2,498 pieces of jade stitched together with gold thread. Be sure to check out the show notes under headlines at theroadtrippingpodcast.com for pictures of this incredible work of art. Jade was so highly valued that it was influential in other areas. Ceramics of the 8th century BCE frequently copied the green hues of jade, as did later Celadon wares. Chinese people love jade, not only because of its aesthetic beauty, but also because of what it represents regarding social value. In the Li Ji, Book of Rites, Confucius says that there are 11 days or virtues that are represented by jade. These are benevolence, justice, propriety, truth, credibility, music, loyalty, heaven, earth, morality, and intelligence. The wise have likened jade to virtue. For them, its polish and brilliancy represent the whole of purity. Its perfect compactness and extreme hardness represent the sureness of intelligence. Its angles, which do not cut, although they seem sharp, represent justice. The pure and prolonged sound which it gives forth when one strikes it represents music. Its color represents loyalty. Its interior flaws, always showing themselves through the transparency, call to mind sincerity. Its iridescent brightness represents heaven. Its admirable substance, born of mountain and of water, represents the earth. Used alone, without ornamental, it represents chastity. The price that the entire world attaches to it represents the truth. Book of Rites. In the Chi-Chan, Book of Odes, Confucius wrote, "When I think of a wise man, his merits appear to be like jade." Thus, beyond monetary worth and materiality, jade is greatly prized as it stands for beauty, grace, and purity. As the Chinese saying goes, gold has value, jade is invaluable. Jade is so ingrained in the Chinese culture that there are famous stories about the jade. The two most famous tales are Mr. He and his jade, or his jade disc, and Jade returned intact to Chow. The stories involve a man named Bai He and a piece of jade that eventually became a symbol of united China. Mr. He and his jade tells the story of Mr. He and how he found a piece of raw jade and tried to give it to 2 generations of kings, but they didn't recognize it as valuable and cut off his feet as punishment for trying to pass off such an unworthy stone. Eventually, the grandson of the first king finally had his jeweler cut open the stone and found the raw jade. It was carved into a disc and named after Mr. He by that grandson, Wen Wang, the king of Chu state, around 689 BCE. Jade returned intact to Chow is a follow-up story of this famous jade. The carved disc was subsequently stolen from the Chu state and eventually ended up owned by the Chow. The king of the Chen state, the most powerful state during the Warring States period, 475 to 221 BCE, attempted to buy the jade disc back from the Chow state in exchange for 15 cities. However, he failed. Eventually, after some amount of political chicanery, the jade disc was returned to the Chow state. In 221 BCE, the emperor Qing Shi Huang conquered the Chow state and, as a ruler founder of the Qing dynasty, had the disc carved into a seal representing the new united China. The seal was part of the royal stores for China for 1,000 years before being lost during the Ming and Tang dynasties.
Are you a fan of true crime, mysterious whodunits, and potential cover-ups? Then join Brand Merritt, the host of Moonshine, Murder, and Mayhem, as he looks back to the 1930s, diving into the mysterious death of a cab operator who braved selling moonshine in the dry county of McMinnville, Tennessee. Did he die of natural causes? Or are the rumors true about police involvement? Here, have a listen.
I'm afraid bad things might happen to you if you start talking about stuff like that.
You told me a story about 5 years ago of what happened to Slim, my great-grandfather.
He was a taxi driver in Warren County area or in McMinnville area. And he picked up moonshine, and he went and picked it up, and he took it to the people.
Hey, Bran, I totally saw where you're working on this new podcast that has to do with moonshining. Give me a call when you can. I've kind of got some history with my family and moonshining, and just give me a call. Bye.
Dude never talked about it at all, about what happened to his daddy.
Bran, are you ready for what you might find? I hope you don't regret this.
Join the search on the brand new true crime podcast, Moonshine, Murder, and Mayhem.
As I mentioned previously, jade isn't found just in China. A few hundred years ago, master Chinese craftsmen who worked with jade daily recognized that some of the jade obtained from Burma, now the Union of Myanmar, was different. It was harder, denser, worked more easily, and produced a higher luster upon polishing. It gradually became the form of jade preferred by the Chinese artisans, and the jade most highly prized by the Chinese people. They realized this long before scientists differentiated jadeite and nephrite in 1863, appreciating it enough to pay premium prices for jadeite. In Central America, the Mayans and the Aztecs prized jadeite jade. They used it for medicinal purposes as well as for jewelry, ornaments, and religious artifacts. As a point of fact, the name jade actually comes from the Spanish expression piedra de hijada, literally stone of the pain in the side. Early Spanish explorers named it after they saw natives holding pieces of the stone to their side to cure or relieve various aches and pains. Jadeite also symbolizes prosperity, success, and good luck. Nephrite jade in New Zealand is known as punamu in the Maori language, or greenstone in New Zealand English. It plays an important role in the Maori culture. It is considered tianga, or treasure, and therefore protected under the Treaty of Waitangi, which made the Maori British subjects, and the exploitation of it is restricted and closely monitored. It is found only in the South Island of New Zealand, known as Te Waipunamu in Maori, the land of greenstone water, or the place of greenstone. Punamu Ta'anga increases its prestige as they pass from one generation to the next, with the most prized being the ones with histories going back for many generations. These are believed to have their own mana and were often given as gifts to seal important agreements. Tools, weapons, and ornaments were made from it, including neck pendants, chisels, gouges, knives, fishing hooks, lures, spear points, and short clubs. Nephrite jewelry of Maori design is widely popular with locals and tourists alike, although some of the jade used for these is now imported from British Columbia and elsewhere. Functional punamu tools were widely worn for both practical and ornamental reasons, and continue to be worn as purely ornamental pendants even after they were no longer used as tools. In pre-Columbian Mesoamerica, jade was a rare and valued commodity. The only source for indigenous cultures, like the Olmecs and the Mayans, was to obtain jade from the Motagua River Valley in Guatemala. For them, the jade was literally an elite good, and usually carved in various ways for use as highly symbolic performances of ideological practices and rituals. Jade is also found in North America. It was first identified in Canada by Chinese settlers in 1886 in British Columbia. However, since they were looking for gold, the jade was considered to be worthless. It was not until the 1970s that jade was commercialized in Canada. One Canadian company by the name of Jade West is one of the largest producers and exporters of nephrite jade in the world, mining 100 tons of jade for export to China annually. Keep in mind that a cubic foot of jade weighs in at about 94 kilograms, or 208 pounds. Due to the mine's location in the extreme north of British Columbia, they mine only 60 days out of the year. They have a variation of color jade that they call polar jade that is said to be the newest, brightest, most translucent, greenest, hardest nephrite yet discovered, and the Chinese love it. For Jade West, mining is done from large boulders that contain the deposits of jade. Using diamond-tipped core drills to extract samples to verify the jade meets requirements, the miners will use hydraulic spreaders inserted into the cleavage points in the rock so the jade can be broken away. Once the boulders are removed and the jade is accessible, it is broken down into more manageable 10-ton pieces using water-cooled diamond saws. The jade is then loaded onto trucks and transported to the proper storage facilities until the entire supply is ready at the end of the mining season to be shipped to the export warehouse.
In China, gifts made from jade are given at almost every important station of life, such as birthdays, anniversaries, marriages, and other celebrations. It is also a commonly used material for producing religious art due to its durability and perceived magical qualities. Another strength of jade was the belief that, as it was considered indestructible, it imparted some sort of immortality on its owner, and for this reason, jade objects were frequently buried with the dead. Another common jade ritual object of uncertain function is the bai, a disc with the central hole cut out and sometimes with the outer edge decorated with notches, which was produced during the Shang and Zhou dynasty, 1111 to 221 BCE. Bai are often found placed on the waist or chest of the deceased. Also common to this period are jade bracelets, miniature human, monster, or bull mask, halberd blades, and miniature tools such as sickles, knives, combs, and scoops, which frequently have holes made in them, presumably for suspension from a waist belt as indicated by the position of their discovery on the deceased in the tombs. Finally, there are decorative plaques, which are often crescent-shaped, known as wang. They may sometimes be carved into stylized birds and dragons or snakes, but maintain their overall crescent form. The Chinese associate jade with clarity of mind and purity of spirit. Some of the ancient symbolic motifs still used in modern jade carvings, both nephrite and jadeite, include bat, which represents happiness, butterfly, which represents long life, dragon, which is power, prosperity, and goodness, peach, which represent immortality, bai, that flat circular disc with a hole in the center, represents heaven. All of these you will see when you visit the shops in China. One of the most beautiful jade sculptures I've ever seen is called Yu the Great, Taming the Waters, is a massive depiction of the Qing landscape carved in the 1787 CE by a team of sculptors, which took over 7 years to complete, and it illustrates jade's continued hold on the Chinese imagination, which remains firm even today. The piece in its honor of the ancient Chinese king, Yu the Great, 2123 to 2025 BC, who was famed for his introduction of flood controls and the establishment of the Zhou dynasty. Its physical dimensions are height 224 centimeters or 88 inches, width 96 centimeters or 38 inches, and it is set on a bronze pedestal. The combined weight approximately 533 kilograms or 11,750 pounds. I will make sure an image of this is also in the show notes, as it is magnificent, though no photographs truly do it justice. There's nothing like seeing this piece in person at the Forbidden City. Another large carving can be found at Zhejiang, known as the beautiful landscape on the cliff. It is nearly 3 meters over 9 feet tall, 2.5 meters or 8 feet wide, and weighs 9,979 kilograms or 11 tons. Gnarled pines and exquisite pavilions perch on the edge of a plunging cliff, highlights the work's beauty and formidable size. The designer combined traditional carving crafts and modern science to create the work. The sculpture has been hollowed out to allow an atomizer to be placed inside, which transforms the natural spring water into a mist that shrouds the jade masterpiece in a fine and shifting haze. The largest in the world, as certified by the Guinness Book of Records, is the Jade Buddha, located in Anshan, China. The statue was sculpted from a piece of jade 7.95 meters or 26.1 feet high, 6.88 meters or 22.6 feet wide. 4.10 meters or 13.5 feet thick, weighing 260.76 tons or 574,900 pounds. The jade stone was found on July 22, 1960 in Zhejiang County of Anshan, which is known as the hometown of Jade. Zhejiang jade is not really jade but serpentinite. It was declared a treasure by the state and listed as a protected property. Anshan city government commissioned the carving, which took a team of 120 sculptors and 18 months to complete.
Well, I hope that you've enjoyed our look into the Stone of Heaven. I actually learned quite a bit through the research that I had not known before, and I can see why it is attractive to a lot of people. I hope that you learned something too and your commute sucked just a little less. Well, that is all the time we have for on this episode of the Road Tripping Podcast. But if you liked it and want to hear more, please subscribe to the show feed and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast directory. The more positive reviews we receive, the more trippers will be able to find us, and the faster we will grow, thus being able to bring you new content. Be sure to visit our website, theroadtrippingpodcast.com, that's tripping with a G, to keep updated on future shows, leave show suggestions, and see all the ways to find and interact with us all in one place. If you are able and feeling generous, then a link to our Patreon page can be found under the support link on the homepage. As always, until next we meet, stay safe, trippers.